Hello, my name is Araya, and I'm going to be talking about celiac disease today. So, if you've watched my previous videos, you know that I have leaky gut and Lyme disease, along with a bunch of other stuff. Celiac disease is one of those things that I've actually wanted to do a video on for a while. So, celiac disease is an autoimmune condition. And it happens, there's not really a known cause. As somebody who has other autoimmune diseases, I think that that's why I developed it, because no one else in my family has celiac. So I don't know if it's hereditary, but I do know if you have other autoimmune diseases, it makes you prone to that. I know sometimes our body having too much of one food it can cause you to actually become allergic or intolerant to it. There's not really a lot of science behind that, but I used to eat peanuts all the time, randomly developed a peanut allergy, and that's happened with other foods too. So I just happen to think that that can happen, but there's not really a lot of scientific evidence to prove that. As a certified health coach, I do know they taught us a lot on celiac disease, and I also know actually more from just personal experience. I've had it for probably longer than this, but I've officially had it for about 10 years. I had stomach pain as a child. I had a lot of pain when I was about 5 years old, and I ate a lot of gluten as a child. I ate peanut butter and jelly, quesadilla, grilled cheese. And there wasn't gluten-free foods back then. No one even knew about gluten intolerance. So I had gluten a lot. And I also had pizza a lot as a child. So all those things have a lot of gluten. And I don't know if I've always had it or if I developed a sensitivity to it. I'm not really sure. Long story short, I developed failure to thrive, which is an inability to gain weight or grow. I was actually supposed to be taller than I am, and it actually stunted my growth. Celiac disease causes nausea, in some cases stomach pain, bloating, distension, stuff like that. And so every time I would eat, I would get sick. I wouldn't get all the nutrients from my food, which celiac can do that. And so I was diagnosed with failure to thrive, a bunch of other conditions, but they did a scope on me, and blood tests aren't always 100% accurate. I had the blood test for celiac and was negative several times. It wasn't until they did the scope that they found, wow, okay, she has celiac disease. So after having a positive scope, I went off gluten for about 3 months, redid the scope to make sure that the inflammation was gone, and it was. So I followed that diet for years, and it worked for me for years. And for those of you who don't know, celiac disease is an autoimmune, like I said earlier, but it happens. It's not just an inability to process gluten. It's not just an intolerance. It's something deeper than that. People with celiac disease can make their body think they're getting gluten when they're not. There are certain food groups that our body processes similar to gluten. So when we eat those foods, it makes our body think, oh my goodness, they're having gluten. We need to freak out. We need to try to handle this. And some of those food groups include dairy. They include corn, barley, rice, quinoa. I don't know if I said this already, but corn. Those are some food groups that our body can have the potential of recognizing it as gluten, even though it's not. So you could be following a gluten-free diet, but you may still be eating dairy, or you may still be having corn, and your body may be thinking, oh my goodness, they're giving me gluten, so I'm going to react to that by having stomach pain. So gluten-free diet worked for me for years, but recently, within the last year, my body has changed. And for some reason, whenever I eat a carb, if any kind. Corn, rice, those are all no-go for me now. And when I do find a safe grain, like for example, corn was always safe for me, so I ate corn. Now corn makes me sick. So we're undergoing some testing to see what foods my body specifically reacts to and thinks that I'm getting gluten when I'm not. So I'm going to be undergoing some blood work to see which foods my body thinks is gluten, and then I'm going to have to avoid those foods. So your body just has the capability to react to those food groups. It doesn't mean that everyone will. It doesn't mean that everyone on this planet who has celiac disease has to stay away from all grains and dairy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that when you have celiac disease, your body develops the capability to react to those foods as well. And for me, I may never have reacted to those in the past, but for some reason, my body is reacting to it now. So I have to pay attention to those signals my body is giving me and get the testing done. And it may require me having a major lifestyle change, which I'm okay with. Some people are not. They don't want to give up those foods. They don't want to give up dairy. They don't want to give up grains. Me, it sucks if I have to give it up, but I want to have a healthy life. So celiac is an autoimmune disease. It is treated by going on a gluten-free diet, but in some cases that's not enough. Sometimes your body will choose to react to certain foods that are processed similar to gluten, and because we have an autoimmune issue, it thinks it's getting gluten when it's not. That's the whole purpose of autoimmune disease. Your immune system attacks itself. So when you have celiac, your immune system will attack yourself because of these foods that you're eating, because it's confused. It thinks it's getting gluten when it's not. So I actually didn't know that about celiac until recently. I always thought, oh, I have celiac, yeah, no big deal, I stay away from gluten, end of story. I'm learning that that's not necessarily the case. So that's kind of what celiac disease is. It's more than just a gluten sensitivity. It is an autoimmune disease, and it affects a lot of people, and a lot of people don't even have symptoms, which kind of sounds weird, but some people can have the gene for celiac disease, or some people have celiac disease, but they don't necessarily get symptoms. So these people could be eating gluten, not know it, keep eating it, and eventually they may develop celiac, or it may just kind of stay dormant in their system. So it's becoming more and more common these days, and I think a big part of why, because people ask me, they say, oh, well, people have been eating gluten for years. Like our ancestors prior ate this, that's all they ate, so why all of a sudden are people getting celiac disease? My response to that is gluten is processed differently now. Back in the day, they grew it fresh, they ate it fresh. Now there's a bunch of stuff done to it that wasn't done to it before, and I think that is partially why people are reacting to it now. And our environment has changed a lot. Back in the day, they didn't have, GMOs and all these things that we're exposed to now. On a daily basis, we're exposed to loads of toxins from our food and the air, things that people back in the day didn't have exposure to. And I think that weakens our immune system, and I think that makes us more prone to stuff like this. So that's kind of what celiac disease is. The treatment is going off gluten and maybe finding out like what other grains your body thinks are gluten. And that test, for any of those of you who are curious, is called the Celiac test. And my naturopathic doctor has ordered it for me. The test is pretty expensive. It's around anywhere from $200 to $300. No, sorry. Anywhere from about $300 to $600. So there's a big range. Part of the test also tests for leaky gut. So if you just want like the part that tests for like the foods, I think it's only around like $250, $300, something like that. But the whole test, if you want the whole 9 yards, then it's around $600, I think. But your naturopath can order it. It's called the Celiac test. It's a blood test, non-fasting. I'm going to be getting it done, so I'm hoping to have some answers. But that's what celiac disease is. That's how it's treated, and it's not always just a gluten intolerance. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.